I'm only going to pick a very small part of our humanity to talk about here, but I think it's what is undeniable. The first is the importance of human language. Reality is where everything starts. Again, I don't know if any of you have read Roger Scruton, but his book, The Face of God, and he points out about speaking of language, and I'm not going to quote this. Actually, the quote comes from the Soul of the World, his latest book. Now, what is it that language does for us in the witnessing encounter? I will argue that language reveals the structure of reality. Language reveals the structure of reality. We think we have what we call modal language, possibilities. So, we say, we talk in a way that there are possibilities in our world, right? But we have language for that only because that's the way the world really is. That is, there really are possibilities in the world. We also have language, and I'll get to what are some of these words, at least in English, but I think all languages have it. We also have this idea of potential, right? How many of us have had how many of us, when we make a decision, and it's a big decision, how many of us struggle with the decision? Should I do this? Should I do that? Well, wait a minute. If the future isn't, now be very careful here, if the future isn't in some way open, I've been very careful about saying that. I believe God is sovereign. I believe history is going somewhere. But I do think that there's a realm, there's an area where we actually have, God gives us some choices. So if there are no choices in life, if everything is already determined, then there is no sense of possibility from where I'm standing. And there is no sense of probability. We have what we call modalities. Why do I say you should have done that? Well, if it was determined, there wouldn't be any kind of language like you should have done that, right? Because it reflects that you had a choice. You say, I might do this. Well, why do you have that language if reality isn't structured in a way that you are really faced with a choice? Might wouldn't mean anything, would it? Or you say, I could do that, I would do that. These are what we call words of modality. As far as I know, every language has this. Every language has the idea of possibility in it. I've asked linguists, I'm not a linguist, but I've asked linguists, and I've consulted a pretty good linguist, I think. And I said, are there any known languages that do not have some way of expressing possibility? He said, no. Now, I explain that in a way by flatland. Okay? Suppose that we lived in flatland. That is, we only live in a two-dimensional world. There's no third dimension. There's no depth. It's flat. You see, in that case, would up or down mean anything if you're living in flatland? No, it would. So those words wouldn't be in your vocabulary because they wouldn't mean anything. So I'm thinking about how do we engage humanity and to get them to think through this sort of a cultural commitment these days to naturalism, for example. Because if hard naturalism, if it's right, there is no notion. You're living in flatland. You can't say, I could, I would, because if naturalism is all there is, then you see you and I are simply the product of a cause and effect, biological, chemical, causal chain. That's all we are. But yet we have these languages. So like flatland doesn't have any idea of up and down, shorter and taller, because it wouldn't mean anything. So if it isn't true that our reality is structured in such a way, right, that we do have possibilities, then we wouldn't have that language. And all human language has it. Isn't it interesting? One of the first questions that children ask, where did I come from? Now, nobody sat down with a 3-year-old and said, now listen, dear, you need to understand, you know, you didn't create yourself. You didn't. So you need to ask the question, where did I come from? No. Why is it so natural? I will argue that a 3-year-old asks that question because intuitively her humanness already signals to her that she's not the cause of her own existence. That means she's a contingent being. So it goes something like this, doesn't it? Mommy, where did I come from? Well, you came from Mommy. But where did Mommy come from? Well, she came from Grandma. Where did Grandma come from? Well, you know this can become a very tedious discussion. So the wise parent gets right to Genesis, okay, and says, well, we all came from Adam and Eve. But of course, you know, you just shorten the discussion a little bit, because the next question is, well, where did Adam and Eve come from? Now, why are children plagued with this? Because children intuitively know they're not the cause of their own existence. They also are intuitively informed that infinite regress, this keep going back and back, somehow doesn't answer the question. So finally, Mommy says, well, they came from God. And a child will ask what question next? Where did God come from? It's precisely. Why do they do that? Are they some philosophical genius at 3 years of age? No. There is something about us as human beings. We're contingent beings, and that we long for some, what we call necessary being, that stops the question. Now, those are just the facts of life. Language reveals something of the makeup of reality. You know, right, wrong, love, for example, requires choice. We accuse and we approve. As a matter of fact, we know in Romans chapter 2, right, verses 13 through 15, the Bible says that God has written the law on the heart of the unbeliever. It doesn't mean that we always get what is right or what is wrong. We don't get it always right, but it's that we have the sense that there are some things right and there are some things wrong. We have that. Where do we get that notion? See? So the language, what I call the moral language, reveals something of the nature of reality. So if that's right, then how do we explain it? If we have this modal language, if we have this moral language that reflects the way reality is. In fact, I've debated atheists, and if there's, won't say, I don't know how growing it is, but there are a number of atheists who are now saying that there are universal moral absolutes. Why? Well, because that's just where the evidence points. And I think of Mark Hauser in his book Moral Minds. I mean, he talks like an evangelical Christian, though he's not. He's an atheist. And he will say, well, yes, there are. That everybody is born with a moral structure. Well, how do you explain that? Say, I think that's where we as Christians now, at least in the moral argument, we're beginning to see that I think it's much easier than it would have been in the days of Lewis, who makes his moral argument. Because we're now having more people agree that there must be moral absolutes, because nobody wants to be, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but fewer people want to be moral relativists anymore. But you see, their system does not explain it. That's their problem. The importance then of this intrinsic intentionality. How are choices made? You know, as I said earlier, we agonize over the choices because we have this language. Oh, I could have done this. I should have done that. You know, I might do this. Oh, I might see you tomorrow. I should go to Krakow. We have all this language saying, I think I should go to do a PhD. Oh, but I don't know if I should. I think I should. Oh, I don't know. Well, there's so much money involved. I don't know if I should. And, well, I think I should. So I think I will. And then you get up the next morning and say, no, I don't know if I'm going. Well, why do you struggle so much if everything is determined? If you are simply the result of this biological, chemical, causal chain, then just let go. What will, que sera, sera. What will be. But nobody really lives that way. We can't. Because that's not the way the world is structured. Well, who has the best answer for this sort of thing? That will become, that will be the great question. Now, there is a possibility that you and I are just simply deceived. You only think you have choice when you don't. But if that's true, then he who created us is a deceptive being. And if that's true, if God is deceptive, then how could you take him at his word at any point? If he has deceived me about the reality in which I live, then how do I know he hasn't deceived me about John 3:16? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. How do I know he's not deceiving me there? So you see, if we're going to go that route, then everything folds up. I mean, I'll have to say that we are in Nietzsche's shoes, and we're peering over the edge into the great abyss, and that's all there is. And you just hope for death to come. And when death comes, Woody Allen's right; it all goes black, and there's nothing after that. But even if that's true, we have no way to explain the world in which we live. So I think this idea that we are deceived just simply does not carry the day. It still doesn't answer the great questions. Why is it enough for us just to complain, just to say, as some people are saying now, that brain states are enough? Why is it that we think that it's right to be a friend? Who thinks that it's a horrible thing to have a friend or to be a friend? Why do we think it's right to tell the truth? Why do we think it's wrong to harm another unjustly? Why do we think it's wrong to torture children? Why? When I was debating an atheist, we began. This particular atheist that I was debating actually believed there are moral absolutes. And so I said to him, "Oh, tell me." I said to the audience, "Now, Dr. So-and-so believes that it's always wrong to torture children." He said, "It's wrong, always wrong." Wrong. No, every time, everywhere, it always will be wrong. Okay? It's always wrong to rape a woman. Always has been wrong. Always will be wrong. Always is wrong right now. It's an absolute. It's always wrong to treat somebody unjustly. I say, oh, no. Now let's figure this out. Dr. So-and-so is an atheist. He believes that it's always wrong for these things universally. Guess what? I believe the same things. But he's an atheist. I'm a Christian. Well then, obviously it's not our belief in God that makes us think these things are right or wrong, because he doesn't believe in God and he thinks they're wrong. I do believe in God and I think they're wrong. So it can't be the belief in God. And I said, what is it that Dr. So-and-so and I have in common? We're both members of the human race. And now you see, we're not arguing up here, we're arguing at a very basic level. How do we explain humanity to be in this state where humanity can agree on these sort of things? And then you see the importance of the human longing, which we've already spoken about. That's found in our language. Why is there a longing for meaning? Why do we ask questions about when? Why? Why is just a subset of the big question of meaning, right? We want to know, why did that happen? My wife and I were driving along the highway one day, and on this particular day, and of course we got in horrible traffic, but it was a stretch of highway that you don't normally see a lot of traffic. So I said to my wife, I wonder what's happened. The fact of the matter is, even if I knew what had happened, I couldn't change anything, right? If there's an accident up front, there's an accident up ahead. But yet I still long for what? I still long for meaning. In a very small way, I wanted to know the meaning of this event. Well, why do I care about that? Now, of course, we could talk about it in a much larger way, right? We long for meaning in the big way. We do seem to long for something beyond our material horizons. Ecclesiastes says that he hath made everything beautiful in its time. He's also put eternity in our hearts. Man seems to, because he longs for this meaning, he wants to make sense out of his world. Well, what are we doing with that as apologists? I think these are points of entry into humanity to first of all talk about the questions and listen to how people are answering and bring these things to the surface, and then you say, how do we answer these questions? What system, what worldview best answers these questions, this idea that language is structured in this way? Why do we long for peace? Why is it that peace is preferred to conflict? Well, because we were designed for that. Why does, back to this, why does man long for beauty, peace, and truth, and goodness? Isn't it amazing that when people move into their flat, or they move into their house, what is the first thing they start doing? Oh, they put flowers on the table, they put pictures on the wall, they put curtains up to the window. Now, what good does that do? Does that enhance your survivability? Of course it doesn't. I mean, you could, does putting a picture on the wall make the house warmer? No. Does it make it more secure? No. Well, then why do you do it? If evolution is the only way to understand the world, then there is no survival advantage to putting pictures on the wall. It doesn't have any advantage. Why is it that we long to do those sort of things? These are basic longings that I think that we all have. So what we end up doing is listening to man, see where he's placed his longing, see where his question of longing is coming up. What is it he's longing for? And allow them to go to the end of that, and then bring back to Christianity and show how that Christianity gives us an answer. I would think I'm right in saying that Christianity is the only system, if you don't mind me calling it a system, where the universe, where creation starts out good and ends up bad. Most all ideas, serious other religious systems, you start out with chaos that's trying to be ordered. Christianity does not start that way. And the point of all that is, if we were here and we're now in this chaotic place, it would explain why I have these longings, as we say, longing for home. You probably have not, any of you, read Wind in the Willows, but it's a children's book in which a mole gets very strayed from his house, his home, for some time, and as he's wandering and trying to find his way back, he goes, smells like home, and his heart begins to race. It smells like, why do we have this longing for home? How many have read The Dawn Treader by Lewis in the Chronicles of Narnia? And we see Reepicheep. And somebody says, what are you going to do? He says, my plans are made. I am going to head for Ashland's country. Yeah, because Lewis is showing that sort of notion of the longing. He sees it in Reepicheep. So just something for us to think about as we're engaging. I think it's a point that we've really missed, though some apologists are doing it. And the good thing about it is every Christian can do this. It is not rocket science. It doesn't take a degree in biology. Okay. Questions, comments?